I'm glad you brought up Rob as it relates to the offense, because normally when we talk about Rob Williams, obviously it's about the defense. You know, he's the best individual defender, arguably, on this team. No disrespect to Marcus Smart, the reigning defensive player of the year, but we know, what Rob brings and what he does and how different this looks when he's not available, especially on this trip with Al Horford. And congrats to the Horfords on a new baby when he is not available either. But, you rely on Blake and Luke Cornett and Grant, and you see what happens basically, and sort of defend from maybe from the outside in versus the inside out in some different ways. But I think, Evan, was it last week Keith Smith was on the show? All these shows blend together, but we were talking with Keith about just this offense and how historically great it's been, how great it's been this season, but how can it go another step? How can it evolve when Rob Williams is healthy? And it's possible, Jackson, that Rob is, people thought he was going to return on the road trip. Didn't happen. He was on the trip, but he didn't play. He could be in the lineup Friday against Orlando or the next game against Orlando, for all we know. So he's coming back soon. We know this much. What does his presence do to the offense?
Yeah, I will say I expect it to be an adjustment period, just because when they've had success in that 5 out, obviously Horford is a stretch big, and Rob is a guy who plays the dunker spot. He runs pick and rolls. He rolls the rim rather than popping and stationing himself behind the arc. So I think that's going to take some time for them to kind of assimilate to this different style of offense, because they missed a lot of threes in the Warriors game, and their transition defense especially was really porous. But I watched that game. And I didn't think like the Celtics, are like in a really bad spot. It was just the reality that they're playing Blake Griffin, a guy who's more of their fifth big, and they're playing 25 minutes. And he doesn't offer the same level of offensive juice. And credit to the Warriors, they bring a level of physicality and defense that seems to still really fluster a lot of those simple actions that the Celtics want to run successfully. So I didn't want to take away anything from the Warriors defense, which was really impressive in that game. But Rob is going to give you that like when Jason and Jalen drive or Brogdon drives, when Marcus Smart drives, they don't always have to take a shot or look for a kick out, which can be tougher. There's going to be, the lay down pass, the lob to Rob. Like there's going to be other outlets that aren't just, do I have to force it maybe a bit of a contested finish, or do I have to somehow find the open guy because of collapse of defense, on the perimeter? I think that's something the Warriors kind of exploited well. And what they did well in the finals last year too, is that they're impressively good at like rotating in, but also not giving up an open three. And I think that's kind of what the Celtics struggle with in that game. So I'm curious to kind of see when and how quickly they can adjust to, we have, one of the best lob threats in the NBA there. We don't have to always force a kick out to a guy. So that's the biggest thing. They don't really have anyone that's like, we can just get a really easy bucket at the rim. Obviously, Jalen's a very good driver. Jason's gotten to be a very good finisher and driver, but it's different when you can just toss it up versus like, okay, I got to take 6 dribbles and put my head down to get there. So that's the biggest thing, is just having a really, really good finisher who's incredibly quick off the ground, giant catch radius. Just provides a different look than someone like Rob or Grant when you're running those double big lineups. I know Grant is shorter than Jason. He's about 6'6", but just a different look when you don't have to, I think that they're a really good 3-point shooting team, but there is some truth to the fact that at times it is nice to just get a point blank shot. Even if there's a great corner 3 look, it's nice to just dunk the ball through the hoop rather than relying on a 40% 3-point shooter from 25 feet away.
Yeah, I agree with that. And one of the things I was looking at, I found a video this afternoon. I tweeted it from my account about how the Lakers, kind of had brought out the best in Anthony Davis recently, with him and LeBron running pick and roll, top of the key and just basically diving into the basket as soon as he sets the screen because of this height mismatch that he's going to have with smaller guys. And you watch Missoula kind of play chess and figure out how to cover that. And how they use Cornette as a guy to come up and like kind of cover the weak side corner shooter, but also just like kind of shade towards the middle of the paint. And as Ant would enter the paint, Cornette would go with Ant, and then Ant's guy who was rolling with him is just going to scram to the corner. Like Boston's been able to do some of that stuff, and the way that they've been able to manipulate so many guys from 3-point range to get great 3-point shots. Like I think their offense will have another level with Rob there. If somebody's got to follow Rob to the rim, Rob's such a depth passer that he's going to find open shooters or he's going to get to the rim with ease. So my question for you, Jackson, is you study this offense. We've all been watching it. It's the most efficient offense in the NBA history, although it be a small sample size. I'm not sure where they are now in terms of their relation to the Nets with Harden, Kyrie, and KD. But, this offense is going to look slightly different. Could it get slightly more efficient as we get into March, April, and May? Because I agree with you. I do think that it's going to take some time. Like, it's not just going to be instant magic. And I think the point that you said about the continuity this team has is really helping them right now. Could this offense take another step towards even greater efficiency with Rob on the floor?
Yeah, I think it can. A lot of their offense is based out of what is termed as delay action. So it's where a big man is up top of the key. You see a lot with Horford, a lot with Rob Will, and you're setting flare screens for Jalen and Jason on the wings. And, it works a lot with Horford, but you're seeing some of the struggles that Jalen and Jason are having with Horford out right now. And I think ideally the Celtics would like to preserve Horford, moving forward. They don't want to rely on him so much. And you can see how much the offense, even the defense, relies on him. So now having Rob Will back, you can kind of manage both of these guys. One who with Horford, is on the older side of 35 or something like that, whereas Rob Will has obviously a lot of, unfortunate knee injuries. So just having that sort of continuity in the sense that you're always going to have a plus passing big man out there to run those delay actions and to give you besides the passing, you get different looks, right? So you get the lob threat versus you get the 3-point shooting with Horford, and the attack out, the closeout attacking are the big things there. So I think it could get better. It's obviously worth noting that as much as Blake entering the starting five has impacted their offensive slide a little bit, they were shooting incredibly well. Some guys are shooting well above their career average from three now. They generate a lot of good looks from three, but you have, guys like Derek White, who's more of a 35% guy, was shooting, I think, 45% the last couple of weeks. Grant, I don't really want to put a cap on Grant because it seems like every year at this point he gets even better, but he's probably more closer to a 40-41 at the high end versus the 40-60 he's at these days. Malcolm Brogdon was flirting with 50% 3-point shooting through a lot of the year. So I think they're about 6 points above league average, which is very good historically, but it's not like the most efficient above league average. I would imagine they end up somewhere 6 to 7 points above league average when Rob returns. When I wrote that piece a few weeks ago, I think they were like 9.5 points above the average offensive rating, which Cleaning the Glasses data only goes back about 20 years, but it was the highest mark above league average in a given year. And that includes like the 7 seconds less Suns, some of those Rockets teams. Obviously the Nets with Harden never quite had a healthy season, so we don't know exactly what it would have looked like there. But I expect this to be like one of the better offenses of the last 2 decades, but I don't expect it to be like the most efficient like it was at one point, just because they were shooting so well from three, and it's going to require a bit of an adjustment with the Rob coming back. So, but the main hope is that they're better equipped for the playoffs, right? Like, as I mentioned earlier, they were the top ranked offense, I think, through the last 40% of the regular season. It was just when they played the Bucks and they played the Heat and they played the Warriors, three, what I would call top 5 defenses. I don't know if they all finished in the regular season, but top 5 defenses last year when it mattered most, they struggled a lot more. And I know they had some very nice games against both the Heat and the Bucks. I don't mean to say otherwise, but obviously those final 3 games, the finals, their offense was the big thing. Like Steph was great the entire finals, but I think their defensive rating was like still pretty solid in the final, like 110, which is still a top 10 mark, generally speaking. So it was the offense and the turnovers and Tatum struggles and some of Marcus Smart struggles that really did them in. And so the hope is that just with a little bit different look, that they're better equipped to, not fall too wins short of the championship, that they can kind of withstand and they can kind of merge a top 10 offense with what I think can be the best defense in the league. And once Rob is back, and you can see they're kind of already dialing it up. I think the last 2 weeks, they're like a top 5 defense. They're kind of streamlining that consistency again that we saw last year. So the big thing for me is Rob just gives you a different look. I don't know how much he necessarily elevates your offensive ceiling, but he gives you more diversity, and he's obviously going to give you a lot. Like he's a playable, very playable offensive option who's going to help anchor you defensively on the interior.